Welcome to the Beau Show. Thank you for watching today. This week, I watched a brand new documentary called Rigged, the Zuckerberg-funded plot to defeat Donald Trump. It is written and produced by David Bossie of Citizens United, a group that makes a number of hard-hitting investigative documentaries, and directed by Jason Meath. The film sets out to answer what happened in the 2020 election, especially when it seemed like Donald Trump would win re-election, and then the results flipped for Joe Biden. There have been many speculations about ballot harvesting, ballot drop boxes, middle-of-the-night vote dumps, rigged machines, and other voting irregularities, even perhaps illegal activity by secretaries of state. But any claim needs evidence, and Bossie aims to provide some of that evidence in this documentary. It centers around the political financial activity of Facebook Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. You may remember that Facebook got into politics when it decided to begin restricting or censoring information leading up to the 2020 election, using misinformation policy as their totally subjective standard. Algorithms were created to determine what was fake news. Of course, we now know that Facebook did not, I repeat, did not allow the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop to be shared on Facebook because they thought it was either Russian disinformation or fake news. As we now know, it was completely real. So Facebook, feigning like it was acting in the public's best interest, got very, very politically active. They removed certain groups that they didn't like, and they limited certain messages. In the end, of course, they banned Donald Trump on their platform, just like Twitter did. They even gave their employees a week off to grieve after 2016. I'm not kidding. So after 2016, when everyone thought that Hillary had it in the bag, they knew they needed to find ways to help defeat him. Zuckerberg made it personal, investing over $400 million of his own money to do this, especially in the key battleground states of Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin. Here's how he did it. Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla have a foundation called the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, whose chairman is David Plouffe, Obama's former campaign manager. They also hired Joel Benenson, Hillary's former chief strategist. Right off the bat, do you find it a bit partisan to hire former Obama and Clinton campaign strategists? Of the $400 million that Zuckerberg spent, $69 million went to the Center for Election Innovation and Research, but the bulk went to the Center for Tech and Civic Life, which the Washington Post called the Democrat Party's Hogwarts for digital wizardry. It is run by Democrat operatives. Now remember that Trump's 2016 campaign saw what Obama did and they got hyper digital. They focused a lot of their money there and it worked. It outperformed Hillary by a long shot. So knowing that, David Plouffe, through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, knew that Trump would get about, let's say, 1.6 million votes in Wisconsin. So therefore Biden would have to crank out about 1.625 million votes. And voila! In the end, Trump had 1.61 to Biden's 1.63. So how did they make up for that? Well, large grants by these Zuckerberg foundations of $400,000 or more went to 92% Biden districts, totaling $272 million spent. To give you an idea of how much money Zuck contributed, the DNC spent just about $400 million on the entire campaign. Zuck matched that. In Arizona, Biden had 600,000 more votes than Hillary thanks to his influx of cash. Georgia got 50 million, more than any other state. Did it work? Yes. It was ruthlessly effective. It flipped. Okay, so now let's look at how they did this. So with these initiatives that have fun little names like Center for Tech and Civic Life, they claim they wanted to make sure elections were safe during the COVID pandemic. So they said they would help supply polling workers and PPE and plexiglass and all of that. Very little money went to that. So they would offer a grant to various election districts. Mind you, most of them by and large were Democrat districts. But, and here's the caveat, in order to accept the money, the district had to do exactly what the foundation wanted them to do. So in places like Wisconsin, where no Secretary of State monitors elections, the money went to over 1,000 various clerks. Where did Zuck direct the money? The 5 biggest Democrat cities in the state: Madison, Green Bay, Kenosha, Racine, and Milwaukee. Now, if safety is the priority, why don't you just distribute the money equally to rural districts as well? Well, that's not their plan. Also in Wisconsin, there is a process of ballot curing, which is fixing any inaccurate ballots. This was done only in the Democrat districts and executed by personnel provided by CTCL. So that tips the scales, you see. In Georgia, you may remember the influence of Stacey Abrams. She pushed a consent decree, which is a process of matching signatures on ballots and restricts the ability to challenge contested votes. Do you know who signed off on that consent decree? Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. So what was supposed to appear to be just a nonpartisan way to ensure safe elections, it turned out to be a hyperpartisan get-out-the-vote campaign for Democrats. Think about it. This group offers you all this money so you have workers and they buy voting machines for you, but they have to be able to have all the keys to the place, and only they can cure ballots. And why not give money to Republican districts? Well, they applied, but got very little grant money. Peculiar, isn't it? Former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman is a special counsel looking into what happened in Wisconsin and considers this an election bribery scheme. Jeff Landry, the Attorney General of Louisiana, is also looking into it in his state. Here's another problem. Now that state legislatures are seeing how this all worked, they are passing bills to stop private money from flowing into their states. 10 states have passed such measures. But in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, where the legislation passed, the Democrat governors vetoed the bill. Imagine that. The Carter-Baker Commission that looked into election fraud found that absentee and vote-by-mail ballots are the absolute most ripe for fraud. But that's exactly what Zuck Bucks were pushing for and pressuring. They used the excuse of the pandemic to do this. They had the means and the method. In Arizona, Zuckerberg spent $5.1 million in targeted districts, and it made a huge difference, way outperforming GOP districts. And Biden didn't even campaign there, really. Remember that between Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, the combined number of votes that tipped the election was just 42,000 votes. Do you see why this matters? Trump had all the energy and momentum. They knew that he would get the turnout that he needed. Biden could not garner that energy or turnout. So Zuckerberg doled out the cash in 92% Democrat districts to ensure that they would get out the vote. They used all the methods that are shady: absentee ballots, vote by mail, drop boxes, ballot curing, consent decrees, you name it. They stacked these organizations with very smart Democrat digital operatives, guys like David Plouffe. And Zuck sent this dough through 501c3s like the Silicon County Community Foundation, which is a pass-through for Democrat billionaires. How do I know? Look at whom they donate to. The Clinton Foundation, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Barack Obama Foundation, the ACLU, big-time liberal machines. In the film, Cleta Mitchell, a senior fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute, says you don't have to look at China or voting machines to see how this election was rigged. Look right at Mark Zuckerberg. So think about this operation. He funnels this massive amount of money under the guise of providing safe elections during the pandemic. The perfect cover. The grants only go to over 90% Democrat districts with the condition that they must supply the personnel and the oversight. They prioritize absentee and mail-in voting. They get to cure those votes and prevent signature challenges. Whether or not any of this is illegal is still to be determined. But what we do know is that this was a majorly effective operation that swung this election. And it was done solely by that little dork who brought you Facebook. When it comes to providing good digital services, Silicon Valley is great. But when it comes to politics, they are entirely too influential. And nobody was paying attention to it until now.